Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Money and Change. My name is Ira Robinson. As always, we're here with Stu Shear. Hello, Stu.
Happy Father's Day, Ira.
Happy Father's Day indeed.
That's right. I hope all the fathers out there have a good day today. And, we've got some interesting things to bring up on the show today. I would ask that if you have paper and pencils or pens, let's get them out because you may need them at the end of the show. So before we start, we always do a disclaimer. The information contained in this presented material is from the posting of news agencies on the internet and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the owners of this program. We are not responsible for and expressly disclaim all liability for damages of any kind arising out of use, reference to, or reliance on any information contained in this broadcast. The information provided is not offered as financial advice, financial planning, or for investment purposes, so you want to use this information at your own risk. Now, from the desk at xe.com, the currency chart today, which today is 616 at 410. The euro stayed the same at $1.12. The Great British Pound stayed the same at $1.42 to the US dollar. The Australian dollar stayed the same at 73 cents. The Canadian dollar dropped a penny. Last week it was 78 cents to the dollar. Now it's 77. The Swiss franc, there's a little movement there. It was at $1.03 last week. It's almost to $1.04 this week. It's $1.03.7. The Japanese yen is 9/10 of a cent. The Chinese yuan went down. It's at 15.1 cents to the US dollar. The Kuwaiti dinar went up a penny. It's at $3.32. And oh, by the way, if you're holding dong, that's Vietnamese dong, the musical tone, dong, the wheelbarrow got heavier. It's at 22,452.49 dong to the US dollar. Bitcoin. Hey, we've got a change in Bitcoin. It's been going up the last 4 weeks. Last week, it was at $647.57 for one Bitcoin. Today, it's $765.70 for Bitcoin. And I'm seeing a move in gold. Last week we talked about people being nervous about the British exit from the euro. If that's going to happen, I guess the vote's in like 7 days. So they're worried about that. Other people are worried about other economies and problems with banks. And so gold prices are going up. And as gold prices go up, it's always due to some type of a problem where people want to get out of the markets and invest in gold because gold is always a solid precious metal commodity to have. It trades very well. But you got to have a lot of money to do that. Well, the gold right now is at $1,280.69, and that was up from $1,273.81. So it's gone up. 4 weeks ago it was $1,213 and a penny. So you can see it's moved up the more people see and hear of problems in the world. Silver. Well, it didn't go up. It went down, which was kind of strange. It was $17.36 an ounce last week. And this week it's $17.21. However, a lot of people, if they can't afford buying gold, they buy silver. Platinum, this week it went down. Last week it was $992.99 an ounce. It's now $969.62 an ounce. Palladium, wow, last week it was $544.42, and today it's $531.85 an ounce. So much for the currency markets. If you go to APMEX right now, they're asking $1,283.50 an ounce. A few hours ago, the price was up, and now it's gone down $4.50. Silver has they're asking $17.28 an ounce, and it's gone down 28 cents an ounce from the previous number. And these change all the time. And I'm not suggesting that you buy things from APMEX, but it's a good place to look at. And they do have some decent deals from time to time, and they're a very reputable company. But this isn't an ad for APMEX, which is American Precious Metals Exchange. But it gives you an idea how currencies move, and they move just about every 20 seconds or so. So, I've told people this time and time again. What you need to do is pay down your debt, put some money aside that you can get to in an emergency. Always have long-term food. Check your food supplies. Go through your pantry and check the dates on your food to make sure your dates are as current as possible. Also, make sure you have plenty of meds on hand and a way to purify water or have water barrels available. Plastic containers of water will work. But you always want to do that before you even think about investing in gold and silver or platinum or palladium. Take care of the basics first. And that's just a suggestion. You can take it or leave it for where it stands. Well, speaking of gold and silver, there was an article in Zero Hedge, and it was submitted by John Rubino through dollarcollapse.com. And the title of it was Big Names Are Bailing. And if you remember, we talked about, I believe, a week or two ago about George Soros selling off about 37% of his stock and putting that into gold.
I remember that. Yep.
And that says something. Maybe he knows something that we don't know. Who knows? But this article came out. It said Stan Druckenmiller, the bull market is exhausted, move to gold. And this was on MindWeb. Legendary investor Stan Druckenmiller, founder of Duquesne Capital Management LLC, told the SOHN S-O-H-N investment conference in New York last week that he is bullish on gold and bearish on the stock market. Gold, he told the conference, is our largest currency allocation. And Druckenmiller recommended that investors sell their equity holdings. The bull market is exhausting itself, he told the conference. A major factor has been the Federal Reserve's easy money policy, which has resulted in reckless corporate behavior. Well, I would say that the reckless corporate behavior happened before the easy money thing. Somebody has to really get a hold of what's going on in the corporate world, as well as the banking world. George Soros, well, they had an article in there. A bearish George Soros is trading again. And it said from Fox Business, worried about the outlook for the global economy and concerned that large market shifts may be at hand. The billionaire hedge fund founder and philanthropist recently directed a series of big bearish investments, according to people close to the matter. Soros Fund Management LLC, which manages $30 billion, that's with a B, dollars for Mr. Soros and his family, sold stocks and bought golden shares of gold miners, anticipating weakness in various markets. Investors view gold as a haven during times of turmoil. Well, Soros said China continues to suffer from capital flight and has been depleting its foreign currency reserves, while other Asian countries have been accumulating foreign currency. And Soros went on to say in an email, he said, China is facing internal conflict with its political leadership, and over the coming year, this will complicate its ability to deal with financial issues. He knows something that we don't, and I think he's trying to hedge on taking his investment into gold and making gold go higher.
That's
through
one of my
more
thoughts.
turmoil.
Yeah.
I never did trust the guy.
No, not at all.
He caused the British sterling to crash. I don't know, back in the 67, I believe. I'm not sure, but that's um, 67, maybe 97, I forget. But he caused that to happen. And it seems like to me he rigs the deck and then bets the way he wants the bet to go. And he's got enough money, he could do that. And maybe by sending all of the Muslims into Europe to destabilize Europe is part of it because his open borders society did that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. He was also one of the ones funding all of the Ferguson riots and the Baltimore
Hmm.
riots.
Oh, Green Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, Black Lives Matter and open borders and their move on.
Yep.
They're all funded by Soros. Um, I don't know if they could ever get him for racketeering under the RICO Act. I'm not sure, but it would be worth looking into. But Soros, his firm bought over 19 million shares of Barrick, Barrick Gold Corporation in the first quarter of this year, according to securities filings, making it the firm's largest stock holding at the end of the quarter. Then they talked about Carl Icahn, and this was in Barron's, and said if financial markets crash, one of the biggest beneficiaries could be billionaire investor Carl Icahn. An investment fund run by the 80-year-old Icahn had a net short position of 149% at the end of the first quarter. Icahn is considerably more bearish than he was at the end of 2015, according to that report. People betting about bad times. How about Sam Zell? Time to get out of real estate? Well, according to Value Walk, talk is about exquisite timing. And they said even today, a decade after the fact, the leveraged buyout of equity office properties trust remains one of the largest of all time at 36 billion, that's with a B, dollars of nearly 600 office buildings in New York, Washington, D.C., and dozens of the nation's largest cities. But in late 2006, some wondered if the billionaire who sold the REIT was being a little rash. After all, the real estate boom was in full swing and the S&P 500 was primed to hit new all-time highs. Is he cashing out too early? Asked a Bloomberg headline when the deal was announced. Well, we all know the answer. Of course. Billionaire Sam Zell deftly sidestepped the coming real estate carnage. Then, with prices at general lows a few years later, Zell bought hundreds of apartment complexes at dirt cheap prices. Maybe he knew something that nobody else knew. So maybe those are people we need to look at to see what's going on. Something is definitely coming to a head. I noticed over the last couple of days on the web that everybody is very nervous about what they call the Brexit, Brexit, or BREX, the letter XIT. With Britain leaving the European Union, and the European Union is saying, well, once you're out of the club, you're out of the club. Tough luck. And there's been a lot of stuff going on. Matter of fact, there was a prime minister that was killed over there, I believe today, or was it yesterday? They said that Brexit campaign suspended after British lawmaker shot dead by mentally ill assailant in West Yorkshire, England. And that person was Joe Cox, which is sad. But who knows? I don't think the guy was mentally ill. He might have been, but maybe there's something afoot to keep things from happening. Also on Zero Hedge, there was an article there this morning, From Entropy to Ecstasy, a Market in Chaos. Well, yeah, the markets are in chaos. A lot of stuff's going on. And I think you're looking at Soros and a few other people looking at this saying, okay, let's just make it a little bit worse and bet on it. and maybe that's a hypothetical, you know, and they could make a lot of money off of it. On the other hand, the rest of us get screwed over. Well, you talk about banks and problems with banks. There's a banking crisis in Belgium, according to superstation95.com. And it said banking crisis, Belgium-based Optima, O-P-T-I-M-A, bank has failed. Banco Popular needs urgent cash injection. And the article went on to say Belgium-based Optima Bank has failed and has been shut down by both the National Bank of Belgium, which also acts as the Belgian regulating body, as well as the European Central Bank. According to the national supervisor, the bank would have been unavailable to meet its commitments to its clients and was forced to cease all banking activities after some potentially fraudulent transactions were unveiled. And it said it's surprising to see the main media have tried to keep this silent, as even the website of the National Bank of Belgium didn't bother to issue the press release in English. Whereas, all other press releases on the homepage can be read in English. There's also, and there's a little curiosity behind this, no statement from the ECB either, nor has the situation is so bad, the regulator has already immediately tasked the special fund organizing the deposit guarantee scheme to start paying out the clients of the bank, even though Optima Bank hasn't filed a bankruptcy procedure yet. First of all, Optima was one of the banks which tried to attract new customers with sky-high interest rates. And it was really suspicious the way they did it. And they reminded us of the Deutsche Bank promotion in Belgium, which also promised ultra-high interest rates on some of its products, as Optima had a real need for serious inflow of cash, just like Deutsche Bank. But the report said, but secondly, and this is even more important, according to the official filings, the National Bank of Belgium had already effectively taken control of Optima Bank by appointing a special commissioner to approve all transactions. Well, that creates a lot of questions, according to the report. It says, what other banks in the Eurozone are under extremely strict supervision by the national or supranational regulators? And two, if the central bank doesn't even announce when a special commissioner is being appointed, how can the public be sure its deposits are safe? And three, what else is going on in the Eurozone behind closed doors? And why did Banco Popular need an emergency capital raise if, as argued earlier, it was strong enough to weather its real estate storm, sending the stock to a multi-decade low? In fact, Banco Popular was one of the banks that had been definitively cleared by the ECB, or the European Central Bank, in its 2014 study, which was supposed to have a stricter overview of the sector. With one Belgian failing bank and a Spanish bank, and that was Banco Popular, needing an emergency injection of 2.5 billion, that's with the B, euros, the credibility of the banking sector in the Eurozone has taken an additional hit, as Banco Popular still has one of the worst bad loan coverage ratios in the Eurozone. And if you think the banking crisis in Europe was over, think again, because part 2 is about to start, according to Superstation 95. There's a lot that's going on over there that's not coming out. And historically, when the Depression started in Europe, it took about a year to a year and a half before it came to the States. That's before we had a lot of electronic transfers. If something goes down in Europe, It's my guesstimate, and it's only my guesstimate. Or swag, scientific wild ass guess, that within 6 months or less we'll be in a very deep recession, if not a depression, here in the States. It depends how badly our banks have been acting. And, we always talked about it before, Iceland. Why can't countries be more like Iceland? They jailed the bankers that caused the problems. They jailed the politicians that caused the problems. And they put them out on this nice island with nothing else around. Just a view of some very high peaks with snow, and it gets real cold there. And really, not too many people to talk to. And maybe that's what other countries need to do. And I imagine they could rent some space on that island in Iceland. Maybe they could learn to like to eat fermented shark, which I've heard is almost like tasting ammonia. And what was the name of the guy on the Food Channel that did that? He went to Iceland and he watched them hang sharks up in a shed.
Oh shoot, yeah, I know who you're talking about, and I cannot remember his name.
Um, Zimmerman?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, there you go.
What was his first name?
Um, ah, I think it starts with a D. My mom watches him like all the time, and I can't remember David or something like that. It might be David Zimmerman,
Oh, I don't
Daniel,
know.
something along those lines.
Darren Zimmer? No. Well, anyhow, he eats all this wacky stuff.
Some of the stuff he eats, man, I'm like, wow, that looks really good, and then others, I'm like, whoa, no way I would even come close.
Oh, I know, I know. It's like the difference between a meal at Win Schuler's in Marshall, Michigan, which is a nice restaurant, very, very nice restaurant, excellent food, and a White Castle. They're two different types of foods.
Yeah.
And they don't call White Castle's belly bombs for nothing, gang. Trust me. So a lot of people like them. I've had them before. But my suggestion is if you're studying for midterms or finals when you're in graduate school, you don't have White Castles the night before your exams. I did, and I learned how to live on about a half an hour of sleep.
Yeah, you'll be slipping out of that test really early, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, or slipping into sleep. But Zimmerman went to Iceland, and he was tasting this fermented shark, and he says, "Well, if you can get past the smell of it," and then he took a taste of it, and he said, "If you can get out of the city and not taste this stuff, you're good." Only people from Iceland like it. Well, could you imagine being on a prison island, and that's all you had?
Reminds me of lutefisk.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. I've never had any.
I avoid it nowadays.
It's codfish soaked in lye.
Yep, and left to ferment for a few days.
Yeah, and they wash the lye off and it turns into a jelly and you cook it and
Lots of butter, lots and lots of butter.
lots of butter. Tons of butter. One little tiny piece of fish and 5 pounds of butter.
Pretty much.
Yeah, kind of cures everything.
But that's one thing to keep in mind is that if things go on, we might have to get used to eating the really odd things. It's like I hear people cringing at eating things like crickets and grasshoppers, and yet in areas of the world where they're broke, they do that, and it's a common practice.
Yeah, well, years ago people would go, "Oh, that smells good. What is it?" "We're having liver." Ah!
Yep.
Oh no, no, I can't. No, no, it smells good, but it's the onions that are making it better. And then, it's like, what do you do with White Castles? I'm not picking on White Castles. Well, yeah, I am. Yeah, just throw tons of pickles on so you don't taste it. Kills the taste. You get by with it. don't add cheese. Cheese kills. Oh yeah. Well, so much for the Food Channel here. And speaking of channels, aren't we on YouTube?
We are indeed. YouTube.com/C/Open Eyes Network is the channel that I've been publishing to.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it's great that we're on YouTube. Thank you very much, Ira.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure.
Oh, I have a lot of fun listening to that. So, we are on YouTube. We are on moneyandchange.weebly.com. That happens to be the website where a lot of information is posted. And we have a lot of information that comes in every day. I spend a lot of time trying to get as much information as I can to help people out and to let them know what's going on, especially with government spending and taxes and so forth. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
speaking of taxes, hey, um, in Bloomberg.com, Paul Tugwell wrote an article about Greek startups. The startup industry say Spiros' taxes are one more reason to leave. And we've always talked about the higher the taxes, the more businesses leave. That's what happened to the US businesses. They went to China. Why? Because the taxes are less, labor is less. And so that's where they moved. Well, over in Greece, the article says Greek startups have weathered political turmoil, violent riots, and withering economy and brinkmanship that nearly drove the country out of the euro. Now, a round of tax increases may be the last straw for fledgling companies with dreams of making it big. And what startups need is a break, says Vasilis Sioros, Chief Executive Officer of Artis Tech P.C, a small company with big plans for the use of olive oil in pharmaceuticals, food, and cosmetics industries. And he says no startup is asking the government for money. He said the state can invest without giving money by allowing startups to pay no tax or Social Security contributions for 1 year, or at least reduce them. This can help give at least another year of life to a startup, allowing for the creation of one or two more jobs. Well, Greece is having this tax and they're driving people out. We could get more businesses back in the US and more businesses investing in the United States if we took the corporate tax from 37% down to 20, even 15%. A lot of companies would come back in the United States so quick it'd make your head spin. We have to think about doing that. The more you tax, the more government takes away, the less you have to invest in new equipment or expand your product lines and stuff like that. But some people in Washington just don't listen. It's all big government, and let's take your money and spend on whatever we want to do. Well, that's got to come to a stop. And hopefully it does. I mean, we're close to being broke. And really, looks like Puerto Rico is. According to Linda Wheeler at The Hill this week, the Supreme Court rules Puerto Rico cannot restructure debt. It said the Supreme Court ruled Monday that Puerto Rico can't restructure the debts of its public utilities to avoid a financial crisis, closing off one of the island's last remaining options for avoiding default without help from Congress. And it was a 5-2 ruling. The justices said that although the government and the people of Puerto Rico should not have to wait for possible congressional action to avert a financial crisis, the Constitution does not allow them to rewrite a statute that Congress enacted in 1984. While states can allow municipalities to seek such debt, the lower court said Congress had not given Puerto Rico that right. The plain text of the bankruptcy code begins and ends with our analysis, Justice Clarence Thomas wrote in the majority opinion. Resolving whether Puerto Rico is a state for purposes of the reemption provisions begins with the language of the statute itself, and that is also where the inquiry should end, for the statute's language is plain, said Thomas. Puerto Rico had long been included as a state under the bankruptcy code, but Congress amended that definition in 1984 to exclude the territory. Well, investors are filing a legal challenge to fight that 1984 law. But hey, I mean, it's enacted, and Puerto Rico's like $72 billion in debt. They're seeking to alleviate the burden, and I don't blame them, but how did they get into $72 billion in debt? Businesses move out. And that they have limited business down there, and the tourism, if the money's not there for tourism, guess what? They lose money. People used to go to Puerto Rico for the beaches all the time. And now that money gets tighter and tighter and tighter, they're not doing that. So, the House bill passed on Friday, and it allows Puerto Rico to restructure the debt, but the Senate hasn't done anything with it. So I don't know what's going to happen to Puerto Rico. If they go under, other states may go under. But basically, the Supreme Court decision said that it leaves Puerto Rico more dependent than ever on Congress to authorize a means for the U.S. territory to avoid insolvency. And Puerto Rico and its public agencies face a $2 billion payment due July 1st after defaulting May 1st on $370 million of government developed bank debt. Wow. And we talked about last week, didn't we, about the Virgin Islands?
Yeah, we did.
And they have problems with debt?
A lot.
Oh, yeah. But they're not seeking a relief for some reason. I have no idea. Well, so much for states and bankruptcy. I wonder how many other U.S. states are close to it. And I wonder whether they're a conservative state or a liberal state.
I think Indiana at this point is actually in a slight surplus. We had quite a bit of debt for a while there. Well, we had a big surplus, and they actually passed checks out to everybody a number of years ago. And then we went into a little bit of debt, and now I think we're back into a little bit of a surplus again.
Wow, lucky you guys. We don't get checks in Ohio. The only thing we get in the mail is, gee, this is what you owe on property tax. Gee, this is what you owe on state income tax. And oh, by the way, you have city tax. And, it reminds me of, and I think we talked about it last week, about Monty Python and Spam.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Instead, this time with what you have to pay out in tax, you could hear them say tax, 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 tax,
Yes,
tax.
sir.
Instead of spam, which, if it was the only thing to eat, spam might be something you would want to eat, spare parts of meat or ham. And if you compared it to a White Castle, gee, White Castle would be a banquet.
It would indeed.
As long as you have extra pickle. Tons of pickle. Oh man. Ooh. No pickle, I don't eat them.
I'm with you.
Yeah, you know how it goes. I mean, 2:00 in the morning after out bar hopping or something like that, anything goes to try to sober you up. But
it's definitely drunk food, yes.
yeah. Well, you're pickled already, so what's a few more pickles? Well, anyhow, going on here, Zero Hedge had another article this week, and it was kind of like the luck of the draw. We get, I go through like 22 different news sources, or 23 if you count the Christian Science Monitor. Some in the U.S. and some in foreign countries, and I have to go with the English translation. If I use Der Spiegel, my German nicht gut. and so I can read it a little bit and understand some of it. But then when they throw in some big zingers, I have to go to Google Translate, and it doesn't translate all that well. So I have to use their English page. But 22 different news sources, and I mean that's a lot of research that I donate, and I donate that to the show. Cause like I've said in the past, I just want to help people out. I'm not being paid a thing. So, if you want to donate something to the Open Eyes Network or the Late Night in the Midlands radio network, so that they can keep the show on the air as well as other shows, because they have to pay for bandwidth and they have to pay for the electricity to get things on the air. I donate my time and services, and hopefully, I'm helping some people out there, Ira. I know that I've gotten some feedback from other people,
Yeah, we have too.
and hopefully we're beginning to make a dent in that. We've been doing this for about 3.25 years right now, and with the information that we give out, hopefully people are listening, because one of these days something's going to happen. They're going to say, hey, I wished I would have listened to that show, or I would have gone to moneyandchange.com or moneyandchange.weebly.com, because there's a lot of information there, and it's all free information. It's there for you to use. Videos like you wouldn't believe. I just added 2 more videos on another subject we're going to cover here in a couple of minutes. Well, hey, have you ever remembered me talking about Standard Chartered Bank?
I do. Yeah.
Way back when Standard Chartered was involved in some of the London LIBOR stuff, like all banks. Well, they had a new guy come in. The new CEO was Bill Winters, and there was an article about him. He said, "No more $1,000 dinners and champagne for above the law bankers at Standard Chartered." And said Standard Chartered CEO Bill Winters is fighting the battle to right the ship at the bank on 2 fronts. First, Winters needs to figure out a way to deal with plunging revenues and billions of NPLs. On the other front, the CEO is working to change a culture in which he is finding many bankers consider themselves above the law. Since taking over as CEO in the middle of 2015, Winters has replaced much of the senior executive team and initiated a probe into employee conduct and ethics. The result of the probe into misconduct has led Winters to add significant firepower to the bank's internal investigation team, including former detectives from the FBI, Scotland Yard, Hong Kong Police, and the New Zealand Intelligence Agency, according to Bloomberg. That's some heavy hitters. So I have a feeling they must have had a lot of goofy stuff going on there for them to have some heavy hitters from FBI and Scotland Yard and the New Zealand Intelligence Agency. Well, Winters said that he had encountered a looseness in the way the bank was being managed since coming in as CEO, and he's uncovered a culture where senior managers felt they were above the law. And in a memo to employees entitled Know the Rules, Winters wrote, I'm concerned about a small number of employees, including some senior managers, having willfully disregarded our policies, sometimes for personal gain, and get a set a poor example for their peers and teams. I am deeply disappointed and angry at some of the examples we're finding. And still licking his wounds from a 2012 deferred prosecution agreement in which the bank was fined $667 million, that's with an M, dollars, for violating U.S. sanctions by engaging in $250 billion, that's with a B, dollars in transactions with Iran. Winters is on high alert when it comes to ethics violations and employee misconduct, because, as what the Bloomberg study says, or the report says, the bank could potentially lose its U.S. banking license if it slips up again. Wow. Some of the other bankers ought to take heed on that. And Winters said, I want this to be clearly understood. We have zero tolerance for any employee that deliberately flouts and circumvents our rules and policies. And he said everything is being scrutinized at the banks. Smaller things such as expense reports are now being controlled more diligently. And they've done a lot of training around what is the right way to submit your expenses and what are legitimate expenses. You can't go and spend $1,000 on a fancy dinner with champagne. If you accidentally charge an orange juice from the minibar, that's not the end of the world. But if you take out 20 people and make the most junior person pay for it, that's big trouble. Wow. Maybe a lot of other banks ought to clean their stuff up too. Ooh, talking about cleaning up. Do I have segues, from different stories to different stories? Kind of planned that way, gang. Anyhow, there was an article in Reuters about foreign selling of U.S. treasuries in April was the most since 1978. A lot of countries are bailing out on their treasuries. They don't want them. They see problems, especially China. That's why the world's in a lot of turmoil. They're getting rid of bum treasuries.
Yep.
Oh, there's an article here in the Chicago Tribune. See, I've added another one. In the Trib, they said irate McHenry County residents use a dollar bill or dollar bills to pay property taxes. Two McHenry County residents this week had a single statement to make about rising property tax bills. Jeff McGrath and Dan Alward, Aylward, paid thousands of dollars of real estate taxes with $1 bills at the county's treasurer's office and vowed to do so again in September and every due date thereafter until the taxes stop increasing. And McGrath, who lives in Woodstock, where he also owns an automotive business, marched into the treasurer's office on Monday, the due date to pay the first installment of his 2015 real estate taxes, and he carried in two clear plastic bags. One, he said, was filled with $9,995.66 in single bills and some coins, along with a check for $1,456 to pay his business real estate tax bill of $11,451. The second bag was filled with $5,757.44 in singles and coins to pay his residential tax.
Well,
He
it's legal
said he did,
tender.
huh?
Well, it's legal tender.
Well, it is legal tender. He said he did that and we'll do it again on September 13 when the second installment is due to make a simple point. We're fed up with getting nickeled and dimed. Now, Alward, 67 of McHenry, also arrived Monday with neatly bundled packages of singles and stacked inside a black suitcase, along with 2 dimes to pay a bill of $5,734.18. And he noted that he paid the county more than he owed. I gave him 2 cents for my opinion, he said with a laugh. Alward said he paid $4,500 tax bill the same way about 20 years ago. Fed up with a 26% tax hike, Jeff McGrath, a Woodstock resident and business owner, explains why he used $16,100 bills to pay his property and business taxes in McHenry County. 2 other residents did the same earlier this week. A 26% tax hike. That's a lot of big government. 26%
That is
hike.
ridiculous.
Ridiculous in the word. There was a report
I think criminal would be along the lines of their proper word.
Yeah. But there was a report where somebody came in with pennies to pay a parking violation. He was so ticked off. So he dumped a whole bunch of pennies. And they said, no, we can't take those. Take them to the bank and bring us the money. Pennies are legal tender. I mean, he could have fought that in court. It would have cost him more pennies in the long run to make his point.
Yep.
But, you take a look at McHenry County Treasurer Glenda Miller. I could imagine her eyes when she saw the dollar bills. And she understands the frustration. She only has like 13 employees, including herself, and they deal with more than over 135,000 tax bills. so you can see what happens. And so what happened was that they had to take people off their regular jobs to count the bills. And then they had to get a sheriff's deputy to go over and deposit the money in the bank. I mean, you can only tax people so much. You can only tax businesses so much. And people get ticked off. And oh, speaking of getting ticked off, we talked last week, didn't we, about the EBT card outage?
Yeah.
Just briefly. Well, according to Investment Watch blog, the EBT card outage is now 12 days of no food stamps. Still counting. And they said back in 2013, several Walmart stores suffered looting and mini riots following an EBT card shutoff, which was caused after a routine check by vendor Xerox Corporation. Well, going on, according to USDA estimates, food stamp participation increased from 17 million users in 2000 to nearly 47 million in 2014. What does that tell you? There are going to be a lot of people that are on food stamps where the food stamps and EBTs were only good for 3 months, and they've extended it due to the poor economy. And now they're going to contract that. Maybe the government doesn't have the money for that. So then what happens? Food riots. Take a look at Venezuela. See what happens in Venezuela. People get shot.
Again, a great example is people on Black Friday act absolutely insane. Imagine how it is when there's no food or you can't pay for food.
That's right. And, people they don't say, well, hey, we haven't heard that the economy is bad. Well, Mike Snyder at Economic Collapse blog had one. 15 facts about the imploding U.S. economy that the mainstream media doesn't want you to see. Well, daggone it, you're going to hear it now. We're not mainstream, but we're telling you the truth. If you don't believe us, check it out. Well, here's some evidence that demonstrates that we've entered a major economic slowdown, according to Mike Snyder. Industrial production has now declined for 9 months in a row. And we've never seen this happen outside of a recession in all of U.S. history. Number two, U.S. commercial bankruptcies have been rising on a year-over-year basis for 7 months in a row, and it's now up 51% since September. Delinquency rate on commercial industrial loans has been rising since 2015. Total business sales in the United States have been steadily dropping since the middle of 2014. Since 2014. Total business sales in the U.S. did in April what they've been doing since July 2014. They dropped. They went down 2.9% from a year ago. Fifth thing, U.S. factory orders have been dropping for 18 months in a row. The cash shipping index, number 6, has been failing on a year-over-year basis for 14 consecutive months. U.S. coal production has dropped to the lowest level in 35 years. Well, we can thank the powers that be in Washington for that. 8, Goldman Sachs has its own internal tracker of the U.S. economy, and it has fallen to the lowest level since the last recession. J.P. Morgan's recession indicators have risen to the highest level that we have seen since the last recession. That's number 9. 10, federal tax receipts and state tax receipts usually both start to fall as we enter a new recession, and that's precisely what's happening now, according to the report. Number 11, the Federal Reserve's labor market conditions index has been falling for 5 months in a row. 12, the employment numbers that the government released for last month were the worst that they've seen in 6 years. 13, according to Challenger, Gray, and Christmas, layoff announcements at major firms are running 24% higher this year. And I also heard that one of the banks, Bank of America, is going to lay off 8,000 workers. Wow. 14, online job postings on the business networking site LinkedIn have been declining steadily since February. And number 15, the number of temporary workers in the United States peaked and started falling precipitously before the recession of 2001 even started. So would it surprise you to learn that the number of temporary workers in the United States peaked in December and has fallen dramatically since then? Hey, it's just going to start. Wow. Well, then you get to our last really big thing. Superstation 95 is talking about the Yellowstone caldera. You know, Yellowstone at one time had a big volcano that blew a long, 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 long time ago. Once upon a time before even I was born. Maybe before Methuselah. Not
Wow,
that I know
I was going to say
Methuselah, but
that would have been a long time ago.
that's a long time ago. Yeah. Once upon a time, yes, in geologic conditions. Anyhow, out in Yellowstone, there were some reports of roadways melting. You know, it got so hot that the asphalt melted, and so you couldn't go into the region. They had other problems. Well, this last week, a magnitude 4.2 earthquake has struck just west of Yellowstone supervolcano. This quake is considerably larger than most in that region. It took place at 8:14 Eastern U.S. time on June 13th at a shallow depth of 6.2 miles. And this is how the quake registered on a seismogram in Montana. It says there's no sign of any eruption from Yellowstone, but this size earthquake is unusual, and folks within 500 miles should keep abreast of the situation in case the supervolcano begins rumbling. In the event of a potential eruption, everyone within 500 miles, that's a 5 and 2 zeros after it, would have to be evacuated because unlike other volcanoes, Yellowstone is a supervolcano, and that eruption of a supervolcano would affect the entire planet. And what would it do? Well, it puts a lot of particulate in the air, kind of blocks sunlight, makes things cool down a bit, makes things difficult for people to breathe in that area. It's very abrasive. Look what happened at Mount St. Helens way back when. So, that's nothing to sneeze about. That volcano is something else. If it erupts, that's one thing. If the New Madrid Fault south of St. Louis erupts, there's going to be a big mess. And Ira, you're lucky you're farther north than I am.
Yeah, we would probably be on the way northern skirts of the ashfall and debris, but definitely a concern. If that thing goes, I mean, the whole world's in trouble, really.
Yeah, well, we're really in trouble if New Madrid goes. If Yellowstone goes, yeah, we're going to have some problems with it.
For the New
Um,
Madrid, we're pretty much right at the northern tip, about maybe 100 miles or so away from the northern tip of it. And I think if something big happened on the Madrid, we would definitely still feel it here. But yeah, I think we'd be for the most part okay.
well, along I-75, there's a section from Cincinnati all the way up to south of Lima, Ohio,
Yeah,
that is on a fault. And I think I'm just about 100 miles south of you. And if something happened, I've been through a couple of earthquakes
they're not
where
fun.
salt and pepper shakers dance across the kitchen table. It's like, oh, what's going on here? And the birds are quiet. You don't see anything moving about 5 minutes before it hits, and then all of a sudden it hits, and everything starts dancing across the kitchen table. It gets a little scary. Well, the reason why I put this at the very end was, sometimes you need a thing called a bug out bag. That's BUGOUTBAG. And what's in a bug out bag? Things you need to survive. Now, if you go to moneyandchange.weebly.com and you go to the Be Prepared page, I have two videos on bug out bags. One is a survival kit, a 72-hour kit that you can make from just going to Wally World, Walmart. Then there's the premium bag, and that's getting all the deluxe stuff from Walmart. And that's about $313 for one of those. But if you take your time in building the bag, you can go to Wally World and you can go ahead and get a nice um, duffel bag or a backpack, a padded backpack, and you can put the following items in there. You're going to need water. You're going to need a life straw. You're going to need toilet paper. You might stuff a couple rolls of toilet paper. You're going to need shelter. You're going to need some hygiene kits in there, a sewing kit. Have the availability to get some type of an aluminum or mylar type shelter. They make emergency shelters that way. Make sure that you get some type of rope that you can take with you, maybe some carabiners. A knife would be good. Flashlight and batteries would be good. Bug spray would be good. Toothpaste would be good. Candles would be good. And you can take cotton swabs and you can mix it in with Vaseline and put those little balls in a plastic container and put them in there. Get a Bic lighter or matches, waterproof matches, and put in there. Maybe a signaling mirror, maybe some chewing gum, long-term food. There's a bar out there that you can get. And I forget the name of it. It's in Kroger's and it's in the yuppie food section where they have all the organic stuff. Cliff Bar. It's a Cliff Bar. Stuff some Cliff Bars in there. Make sure you have some aspirin, your medications. Put all that in there because you're going to need it. And those videos are in the Be Prepared section at moneyandchange.weebly.com. Go to the website, use the information, watch the videos. Hopefully it helps you out when a disaster starts.
Indeed. We've got our bug out bags. We've got one for each person that's here, and well, we've pretty much put together the deluxe kind of versions of them, but they're definitely essential.
That's right. They're there. Well, that's all I have this week, Ira. And we'll be back on the air next week, God willing, and bring some more news about things. Hopefully, everybody donates to keep the show on the air. And like I said, my services are free. I'm just trying to help people out there. And if we have a bad bank situation, don't say I didn't tell you. And if you're not prepared, you better be prepared. It's not too late to start. But if something happens later on this year and you're not prepared, just remember when you go to the grocery store and there's nothing on the shelves, and you go to the 7-Eleven and there's nothing on the shelves, and the credit card doesn't work, the debit card doesn't work, the ATMs don't work, don't say that we didn't warn you of that. So get a head start on it. Well, anyhow, Ira, that's all this week. And I wish everybody a very happy Father's Day. And we'll talk to you next week.
Awesome as always, Stu. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Everybody else, we will see you again soon. Be safe out there.